All right, this next one's from Morph. The best features of Star Citizen Alpha 3.18. Let's see what he thinks is really good. And maybe I'll also share the things that I love so far from my experiences.
Star Citizen's latest patch, 3.18 PTU,
480p. That's not Morphologis quality.
Rolling out and into players' hands.
There we go.
Proving to be one of the biggest patches we've gotten in a good long while.
I think it's a little low,
containing
too.
much anticipated and long-delayed features like salvage, the cargo refactor, and a very important cornerstone tech feature called persistence, also known as PES. However, there's a bit more to this latest update than first meets the eye, and so shortly I'm going to take you through the very best features of patch 3.18. And if along the way you think I did a good job and you think I deserve it, please don't forget to hit that bell icon and the like and subscribe button so you know the next time I post a video, because it really helps me out.
Was that him flying? Or was he like in the seat of another ship where somebody was flying like mega smooth? Because that is my favorite racetrack, and that was, dude, that was fast.
With 2022 being as slow as it was, it feels like it's been an age since I made a video talking about some big cool new features. But it seems that we've finally gotten our hands on a patch with some meat on its bones. Starting off with the Daymar crash site. This was a feature that was put together by the Montreal team,
I'm glad he put this first, because out of all the updates, I think this is the least interesting. It is so cool to go to once, and then I'm good.
Relatively new section of CIG who have proven themselves to be extremely talented and efficient. They produced an amazing looking crash site that contains 2 derelicts, a Star Runner and a 600i. The location is going to feature several different mission types, and it definitely is its own point of interest. Unfortunately, it looks like it'll be the only one of its kind in this patch, unless they've sneakily threw in the new Javelin wreck that they teased over a year ago. It's a very cool location, and I've been really impressed with the set pieces. There's a multitude of NPC guards to fight, with some loot to get from them, and some treasure for the entrepreneurial explorer, if you're willing to dive down into the wreck, especially the one that's a bit precariously balanced on the edge of a very deep pit, whose bottom is certainly littered with the bodies of some failed explorers, which, by the way, you can find and loot if you've got a ship to fly down and find them with.
Okay.
So if you want to find it, you can head on over to NT-999-XV1 on Daymar and travel bearing 47 degrees for 132 kilometers, and you'll hit it. If you don't see anything, you're likely to find something if you ping, because you're going to find probably some player wrecks or even some ships that players left there who have unfortunately died since they visited it. So don't forget to hit that ping if you don't see it. 3.18 introduces 40 new river locations around Microtech and on
I've
the
not seen a single
planet.
river.
They've been visually improved and include one that has a really cool looking canyon, but there may be more. I don't think everybody's visited every single location. They're great low-flying spots to check out for crack pilots, and while there are no significant gameplay features surrounding them just yet, they're definitely a welcome geographic feature to backdrop the ever more detailed universe
the water
of Star
reflecting
Citizen.
on the inside
and I
of the
frankly
ship.
wouldn't be surprised if one of these becomes a new racetrack. To get to the location featured in this video, head on over to Microtech Data Center KH3AAE-L on Microtech and fly for 450 kilometers on heading 27 degrees. Next, we've got a ton more derelict outposts around the stand-in system on all of the moons and planets. There's a good deal of missions now surrounding them, so it's pretty easy to find if you want to do the Retrieval Op mission, or any of the bounty hunting missions are likely to take you there. Unfortunately though, they don't look like the ones we've seen for the Pyro system yet. They're mostly just completely destroyed. I was kind of hoping to see some more complete versions, but maybe they're holding them off for the big 4.0 patch. Next on the visual side, we've gotten some sand caves. Now, we were warned ahead of time that they wouldn't contain very many things to do just yet. There are no missions associated with them. But
there's nothing.
That being said, they are still extremely beautiful and definitely worth exploring for those of you interested in some breathtaking environments. And you're even guaranteed to find some little critters in there that you can sell, though I'm not quite sure for how much money. They don't move around yet, they just kind of wiggle in place. but, I guess it's technically our first animal in Star Citizen. If you'd like to find this one yourself, community member Carolinger discovered this one 134 degrees southeast at a distance of only 54 kilometers from outpost NT-999-XV1 on Daymar. And just like the crash site, you can ping, and you're likely to find some player ships parked at that location and make it easier to find for the entrance.
This dude's just salvaging ships
Star Citizen's Cloud City, Orison has also gotten some love in 3.18.
Oh yeah, there were turtles
make
before.
A lot of people very happy, starting off with the altitude you're able to jump to and from the city. Now, instead of having to travel something like 70 kilometers just to jump out of...
Yeah, Port Olisar is my new home now. Or not Port Olisar, I should say Orison is.
Atmosphere, you only have to travel for 10. This is definitely going to save a lot of people time and make Crusader a much more appealing location to set as your home. But that's not all. They also added a cute little Grey Cat PTV racetrack located at the convention center where we had the Invictus and the, I think, IAE last year. You can find this by going to the spaceport and heading onto the tram that takes you over to the convention center. It's a pretty fun little racetrack.
I want to get the wheel out.
It's definitely something I'm going to do a stream with my community on, because it's actually a lot of fun to race on. And finally, the platforms that were used for the Siege of Orison have now been repurposed as mission locations just outside of the main city, which means you don't need a spaceship to go do missions. You can just hop onto the tram with a gun and go take out some baddies, which is going to be a great way to make some quick money if you are into FPS combat. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any of these missions in the PTU. This could be a bug, I'm not sure, but I
still can't either, Morph.
Trying it out myself, because those platforms are spectacular.
For me, that's the only like true I don't consider rivers really a feature right now. I think it's still just like a tech demo kind of thing. I think they're going to improve them and put gameplay at them, and there's going to be things to do and stuff like that. I think that's when rivers will be a feature for me. But the features that have come in, I've not been able to get a single mission to bring me to those platforms, unfortunately. And I have been spending time around Crusader mostly. Redler did get some. He said they suck. I mean, given the state of the servers right now, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I can't get the starter mission. That's my problem.
Moving on to some bigger content, the cargo system refactor also made its way into 3.18, at least partially. It's a huge technical update for Star Citizen's cargo system, which has...
It's not just a huge technical update. I think it's the update that, starts making the game feel a little bit more alive. I think we need... the choice of manually or automatically having someone load our ships. But,
then enabled by the persistent ND streaming tech that I talked about, PES or persistence. It includes physicalized cargo, which can now be removed and moved on cargo grids of all ships that have them. Importantly though, this tech enables a lot of other types of gameplay that people have wanted for a long time. For example, pirating. Now pirates can basically hijack ships using the distortion damage rework, which disables ships for 5 minutes, or by putting ships into a soft death mode, which, if you don't know, is a new condition your ship can get into once it gets past 0% health. There's a 70% chance your ship goes into a disabled soft death mode from which it cannot recover. In this mode, you can still open and close the doors, but the ship will no longer fly. That also means
What material is this? I haven't seen these copper-colored boxes yet.
When it goes into the soft death, players can board your ship and take your cargo. And by the way, this was kind of snuck into 3.18 and is kind of a really big deal. If you log off while you're being pirated by players, your ship will remain. Even though you've logged off, all of your cargo is still in the game and can be taken by those players. So combat logging has actually been solved in 3.18. if reports are indeed correct. Now, the law system has been one...
guys, I had one of the best experiences I've ever had in Star Citizen ever. I was at Security Post Korea. We were messing around doing the criminal side of, taking the guard down and stealing the evidence. And 3 people came. My friend that was with me, PC, had the lawful side mission, so he looked friendly. He talked to them while I killed all 3 of them, and their bodies stayed. I took their bodies to my ship. I looted them. The loot didn't matter but the fact that I was able to do that and not felt like there was a beginning and a middle and an end to that experience. You know, there was the, oh no, they're here, I got them, and then I was able to loot them. It finally came together, like what I was waiting for since 3.15.
One of those features in Star Citizen that has gotten a lot of flack from different angles, and for good reason. It's been a little jank since it was first introduced, but luckily every patch, CIG works to make it just a little bit better, and 3.18, in my view, does a little bit better by actually making a significant and important quality of life change, and that's changing the way that crime stats work up to level 2. Now you can pay them off instead of having to go to prison or be shot by the stations and bounty hunters. So this is going to be great in case you accidentally run into a friend and you get a crime stat. It's not going to help if you murder someone though, so plan on going to prison if that happens. There's also a great deal of polish that went into it, some highlights being that you can now no longer be exploited by griefers, where they could ram you and then press charges against you, giving you the crime stat instead of them. You can understand a lot of people were very frustrated with this issue. But there are other more significant changes in this patch that aren't just quality of life.
Yes.
And that's the change to the way you clear your crime stat.
This is so
now,
far my
instead
favorite
of being able to
feature.
go to a number of different security posts to hack down your crime stat with a chip, you can only go to security post Korea, which has gotten a bit of a refresh. Now, the interior and exteriors are completely reworked and polished up, and now include a great deal more security to fight, who
Morph
are
blew up
actually
for
pretty
sure there.
responsive. As before, when criminals raid Korea, other players will be notified.
Guys, just from that statement, they're pretty responsive. Your results may vary. Okay.
Of this illegal action and be tasked with stopping you, but there's some additional benefit to raiding it now. The loot is just as good as it was before, but now there's a dispensary where confiscated contraband can be dispensed to players who get access to it by killing the chief security officer and taking his chip.
As you can see, none of those AI were responsive since like the first one that shot him.
In fact, makes Korea a sort of pseudo jump town in space. It's sure to become a hotspot for PvP, so if you're looking to become a criminal, be ready to fight players.
I think I'm going to spend
finally,
a lot of time
when players
there
are
and
caught and thrown
here.
in the slammer, Klesher has also gotten some love. Now, the prison is going to have some additional prison activities for you to do, starting off with a mission you can get from Rudo in a section of the cave that doesn't have a comm-ray. And you can find that in section 2, depth 11. That's when the comm-ray cuts off. If you stick around for long enough, Rudo...
I think it's any section, by the way, like depth 9 or further.
Will contact you and give you a mission to recover a microchip off of another prisoner who failed to escape through the escape route. And so you're going to be tasked with going through the escape route, locating the guy's body, which is going to be located in a very precarious location that will surely result in death if you don't do it right, and then you'll have to escape to the surface, find a rover, drive out to the transmission location, and then if you succeed in that without being killed by bounty hunters or the elements or trip mines or falling off a cliff, your crime stat will be clear. There will also be a ship there available for you to fly away with if you make it through all of this. Suffice it to say, this is not the most efficient way to get out of prison. You might be able to get out faster just mining or doing missions. Or you can also get out of prison faster by still being pretty shady by going down into that section where I said there was no comm-ray and shanking your fellow prisoners. If you do so, you can steal contraband off of them, because there are also some NPCs you can loot and sell it to the commissary, where you'll get some more merits to leave sooner. So yeah, there are now more ways for you to escape than just waiting out your sentence or mining, which should make the activity.
Again, your results will definitely vary here at this time, and I cannot confirm or deny if in live it'll be any better.
A lot more interesting for players. Just be careful, because other players will be able to kill you in that section just as easily and loot your corpse. So watch your back. When you finally get out of prison and you're ready to turn a new leaf, you might look to some non-combat, non-criminal missions to do,
Valley.
like the new time trial race missions,
I
which
love this track.
is actually a whole new gameplay loop and a lot more than I expected in this patch. They added 7 new tracks, each decorated with awesome set pieces, all created for the most part by the community. CIG went and made these tracks, specifically the Montreal team, but they were originally created by the XGR racing community, which you'll find in the description of this video. I'm also doing a special video talking about them and the race mechanics in a video coming later, so definitely look for that if you're interested in this. I highly recommend it. It is a
gameplay loop, yes, because you have to gain rep at the tracks to get the next track, so it's kind of a loop.
A lot of fun. So basically, you have these 7 tracks that you can go to through the mission
in the PTU,
system.
that's
It will
not
set
how it
you
works.
to go there, and it will start a timer once you arrive. You'll be set with going through a number of checkpoints, which will show up on your UI, and if you make it through fast enough, you can place from bronze all the way up to platinum, each awarding more and more cash and reputation that will lead to you being able to do more tracks and earn more money.
Yep.
And one of the other really cool features in 3.18, thanks to persistent entity streaming or persistence, is that missions are now saved between sessions. So if you did a mission and completed it, you can look in your history to see what your time was for your last race.
Oh, that's cool. I
Unfortunately,
didn't
though,
know that.
missions still don't persist between sessions if you didn't finish them, so we'll have to wait maybe another patch or 2 until that becomes a thing. One feature that was added in 3.18 that's not on the patch notes has also been a change to how quickly you black out. And this is going to affect you racing or doing combat. Before you could pull something like 20 Gs plus and be fine. Now if you try pulling that, you're going to black out right away, which means you're going to have to be a lot more careful with your turns and your throttle, otherwise you'll lose control and hit a wall or die from someone shooting you because you're just floating through space without being able to navigate. And finally, we're also getting salvage, which people have been waiting literally years for. This has been delayed since something like 2016. Unfortunately, its first arrival is only Tier 0, and so some of you may be disappointed to learn that it only includes something called hull scraping, which is essentially similar to mining, but with less nuance. You just point this laser at a ship, and then you take the hull off, and you can sell the scrap that you get in the cargo boxes that you get in the back of the ship. You've got 2 ships in 3.18 that are capable of doing this. The Vulture, which is a new vessel, an entry-level alternative to the Prospector, which does mining, and then you've also got the Reclaimer, which can do it a lot faster. But in both cases, you're going to need to go down to the dispensary and sort out your cargo boxes as they fill up. Luckily, it's a pretty profitable venture if you're using a ship. A single SCU box will net you 7.7 thousand UEC if you sell them at a trade area like at Crusader, and that's nothing to scoff at, especially if you got a full cargo full of it. Unfortunately, though, the hand mining version of it is not so great. A single container full from the multi-tool will only get you around 160 to 170 UEC, which is definitely not worth your time. I think it's only meant for like maybe doing some spot repairs, because you can also use it to repair a hull.
But even the spot repairs, it's like barely any, like the canister empties so quickly.
But even that doesn't do much, so I'm not quite sure what they were thinking with this. Hopefully they expanded a bit more, maybe with a purpose-built backpack that can store more. That way you can keep at it for a lot longer.
There was a salvage concept backpack, if I remember correctly.
About where you can find wrecks to salvage, you can locate them around asteroid belts and in Lagrange points, basically where you find asteroids. I think they just added ships to the spawner, which is kind of disappointing. There are no wrecks that you can find from NPCs on the surfaces of moons or planets, so if you're looking for them there, you shouldn't bother, you won't find them. Fortunately, though, you...
But technically, can you? If, so with PES and people doing FPS bounties, there are not FPS bounties, but like ship bounties at the like ground locations. I'm assuming that's going to leave ships there to salvage, right?
Can actually salvage players,
but most likely they'll be at locations where you're Gonna get shot at by turrets or
They're
something.
destroyed wrecks, so if you go to a location where there's been a lot of PvP, or there are a lot of leftover ships at a POI because people just abandoned their ships or crashed them, you can salvage those and make an equal amount of money as you would if you found a wreck in an asteroid belt, which makes part of this new mechanic at least somewhat dynamic.
Somewhat, yeah.
And of course, I can't talk about salvage without also talking about the tech that enabled
find
it.
wrecks like,
persistent
asteroids in
entity
the radar
streaming
ping?
or
Yes, you can.
persistence. It's a cornerstone tech of Star Citizen that's coming online as of this new 3.18 patch. Its primary function is basically to store all of the things that we have in the universe on a second server, so that if the server goes down, it'll still remember where all those things were. It sounds like a rather simple technology, but given all the entities that are in Star Citizen, it was rather complex and difficult to code. And so CIG is extremely happy that they've gotten it working in this first iteration for 3.18 PTU. It still has some problems here and there, but they're getting it fixed up to ship it out to live. If you're curious how PES is going to manifest itself for you when you play in this new patch though, it is going to do some interesting things. For example, when I was visiting a POI, point of interest, the crash site for making this video, I ran into a number of player bodies and wrecks that had been left over, and they were there only because of PES. It saved their locations, so now you or I...
So instead of leaving them there so they could come back to it and get their stuff, I could take all of it.
It can go there and discover different people's stuff and loot it. So there's a lot more loot in general now to find. And because some of those ships blew up,
which is exactly
there are now
what
wrecks
I would do
for you to mine in those locations. And that's really why they had to wait until PES for them to introduce doing salvage, because you needed that mechanic to fill and populate the universe with these wrecks. Now that being said, PES has highlighted some game design flaws with 3.18, namely the
Yep, what he's about to say, it's really bad.
way that wrecks look on the ground. At present, they're really clean when they come off the ship, and they bounce around due to the physics engine in a ridiculous looking way. You can see it in this shot here. It looks silly.
I'm not even talking about this. I'm talking about the NPC ship that's here. They only have one spot to land, and it'll blow up, and then the wreck will land on top of that wreck, will land on top of that wreck, will land on top of that wreck over and over and over again.
Definitely is something that they're going to have to figure out how to resolve by maybe adding a shader to make them look older as they stay there for longer, and having some way for them to procedurally look like they've impacted the ground so that they stay still and look like they blend with their surroundings. Surely, it's not an enviable challenge for them, but it's one that's definitely necessary if they want to make this the immersive experience that they've talked about. Another thing to keep in mind is that this initial implementation of this tech has another flaw,
oh my God,
and
he
that's
got damaged.
Each server is currently unique with its persistent save, and so if you change to a different server, that universe is going to look very different than the one that you were in previously. They're trying to make it so that every time you connect, you go back to the same shard, but that tech currently isn't reliable in 3.18, so we're going to have to wait till a later patch for us to go back to the same shard every single time and experience the persistent universe that we're used to. So effectively, it's not going to feel too much different than 3.17, aside from having a lot more junk laying around. And lastly, one of the other really big highlight features of 3.18 that many were looking forward to was the full integration of their new Gen 12 render engine. This basically...
I don't think we were looking forward to this that much. I think we're looking forward to the next piece of the puzzle, which is the optimization of it.
Is set to make Star Citizen run better for a lot of people on a lot of modern systems. You should expect to see some minor FPS improvements with this patch, but mostly it is the key for them to integrate stuff like the Vulkan API to really get some serious performance gains. And we're already starting to see a visual improvement with Gen 12, specifically with the lighting. A lot of spaces now look a lot better lit, like in asteroid belts and during the night cycles of moons and planets. You'll notice now that other orbital bodies reflect a lot more light onto the surface, making the night lighting conditions feel a lot better and more realistic. Well, that's pretty much it for my list of the best features of 3.18. Well, 2023 is set to be a bit of a slow year. As you can see, there's a lot to go and discover in this new patch. It's sure to keep us busy until we start looking for what comes next before Pyro. But what did I miss? Is there anything that you think I should have included as part of this list, or some feature that you discovered that I overlooked? Please let me know down in the comments section below.
That's such a good way of seeing the racetrack.
If you like this video and you want to see more like it, you know what to do. I'm Morphologis. Hope to see you guys in the next one.
Damn, that's so cool. But yeah, I mean, that was a really good video. I think for me, my favorite thing right now is Security Post Korea. After that, it's like the combination of salvage and the cargo refactor right now. I don't think the cargo refactor is really going to be realized truly at the moment because of the fact that, well, yeah, there's still a lot more to do. No economy, as well as it's just the beginning, and it's only one SCU size boxes, not all of the boxes, so on and so forth. But I think the plan is to keep working on that. I don't think this is tier 0 and then they wrap up, move on to something else. It sounds like they have a lot more that they want to do, and I think that's why I like the cargo refactor so much, is that it's going to continue to grow and it's not going to fall the way of, I don't know, inventory, medical, and just kind of be put in a almost exciting place but not good enough kind of thing. So pretty excited for that. Salvage, kind of the same scenario where it's just hull stripping. It's not exciting really yet, but the fact that it's worth doing and it's kind of cool to do as a group, especially, you know, you got your box movers, you got your people flying the ship, you got your people actually doing the salvage is pretty cool. So those are mine, but Security Post Korea, definitely my favorite.